Hi guys, welcome back to Caterpillar Cross Stitch. My name is Sian and today we are going to be embarking on the first part of the Caterpillar Cross Stitch school series. This is a 4-part series where you will learn how to cross stitch, making it perfect for those of you who are completely new to cross stitch. We are super excited to be bringing this to you guys to help you along on your cross stitching journey. If you're new around here, we would love for you to click on that red subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that you get notified of when we upload the different parts for this school series. The Stitching School will run over the next 8 weeks and we will be releasing a new video every 2 weeks for the Cross Stitching School, giving you plenty of time to watch each part and to stitch each section that we're going to be covering. We will also send you an email reminder of when the next part has been uploaded to YouTube once you have signed up to the VIP Stitch Club. There will also be ongoing support from the Caterpillar Cross Stitch team here in the YouTube comments, so if you do have any questions then make sure to leave them down below. And I would also encourage you to go and check out the Facebook group. It's a really supportive and friendly community where you can reach out to other stitchers and also share your progress. Now, Sally has designed a brand new free design specifically for the Cross Stitching School, which I am so excited as it is a really fun and colourful bookmark called Bookworm. It is designed on a Zweigart band fabric and Sally has used 3 really fun and colourful colours which are a DMC brand. Now this is a great project to stitch for yourself, especially if you love to read, but I also think this would make for a really great gift for a friend or family who loves to read books, and you could even change the colours to make it a bit more personalised and use their 3 favourite colours instead. To obtain a copy of your pattern, all you need to do is sign up to the VIP Stitch Club, where you will be able to gain instant access to the pattern. Not only will you have access to this design, but you'll also have access to all the other designs that Sally has designed completely for free for you to stitch. Now, if you are already part of the VIP Stitch Club, you don't need to do this again. You will have it instantly available in your emails. Sally and the team have also put together supply packs which contain all the cross stitch materials that you need for this project, which you can go and purchase over on the Caterpillar Cross Stitch website, which we will leave down below in the description box. So let's take a look at all the materials that you're going to need, and we'll cover some basics that you need to know before you start cross stitching. So part 1, we're going to be covering all the things you need, all the materials you're going to need for your project, and we're also going to be covering some of the fundamental things you need to know before you cross stitch. So here we have the pattern. So this is the Cross Stitch School pattern, which has the bookmark design. And we also have the supply pack, which contains the Zweigart band fabric, which is the perfect size for the design. We also have a size 24 needle, as this is the perfect size for a 14 count Aida fabric. And we also have the DMC threads, which are the called for threads for the design. So there are some other things we would recommend to have for your project. The first one being a project bag. So this is a bag designed by Sally, and you can purchase these on the website. There is also going to be a new bag coming out this year, which I'm really excited about. But it's always great to have something to store your project in so that when you're not stitching on it, you know that it's safe and secure in your project bag, ready for when you want to pick it up. So we would always encourage you to have something to store your project in. We also have needle minders available, and these are great for keeping your needle safe and secure. They are a magnet which places on your fabric and holds your needle in place, and I'll demonstrate that shortly in the video. We also have a pair of scissors. Now we are going to need a pair of scissors for this project, and we would recommend sharp embroidery scissors, just like these caterpillar cross stitch scissors, as they really do glide through the thread, cutting the thread clean and crisp. So we also need a pair of scissors. So let's break things down a little more, and so we can take a look at things a bit more closely, starting with the pattern. Taking a close look at the cross stitch school pattern, there are 3 pages in total. The first page outlines the stitch size area, the stitch count, and also shares some important information you need to know before stitching. The second page outlines the DMC thread colours that are going to be used in the design, the symbol to look out for, and also shares some instructions that help you get started with your project. And then the last page has the design in black and white and also in colour. So let's break down the first page of our pattern. The first thing to look at is the finished stitched area sizes. On 14 count Ada, the stitch size is going to be 7.8 by 1.7 inches. The stitch count is going to be 109 stitches by 24 stitches. So if we take our Zweigart band and take a template of what the stitch count or stitch size is going to be and place it on the band, you can see that our design is going to fit perfectly within the band, with a couple of inches extra on the sides for us to play with. If you are not buying the supply pack from Caterpillar Cross Stitch and using your own fabric, we would recommend that you add an inch onto each of the sides to give you enough fabric to use when you are finishing your piece. Now the count refers to the amount of stitches that are going to be stitched within an inch. So this Zweigart band is a 14 count Ada fabric. And so if we take our ruler, there will be 14 stitches or 14 squares within the inch of the fabric. So that's what the count means. So if there was a 16 count number here, so if this said on 16 count Ada, that would mean that there are 16 stitches within the inch, making the design on your fabric a little bit smaller than what it would be on 14 count. As part of the cross stitch school, we're also going to be covering things outside of the bookmark so that you have a good understanding so that you can pick other projects up as well after your bookmark. So here we have a 7 by 4 inches piece. So this is representing the final size of a project, and we want to frame it. So what we need to factor in is the fabric that we need extra to allow us to frame the piece. So we would recommend that you would add 2 to 3 inches in your fabric calculation to allow you to have extra fabric around the piece, which will help when fully finishing your project into a frame. So if your piece was 7 by 4 inches, you would need to add to each number 3 inches plus 3 inches, which equals 6 inches. So you would need to add 6 inches to this number and 6 inches to this number, which will give you the size that you need for your fabric. Okay, so moving on to the important information section. Now, a lot of this we're going to cover in upcoming parts, but there is one point that I want to talk about here in today's video, and that is the orientation of our fabric. So the pattern says that the orientation of a fabric is going to be landscape. So that means the longer edge of our fabric needs to be horizontal and the shorter edge of our fabric needs to be vertical. So when we start stitching, we need to stitch with our fabric in this direction, then having our fabric in this direction. So that's what that point is referring to. Now, as I mentioned, we will cover more of this in upcoming parts. So let's move on to page 2. So moving on to page 2, we have the instructions here on the left, which goes into detail of how to start and what you need to do before you start stitching. Then we have our DMC colour key here on the right. So these are the symbols that correlate to our colours and our thread. So if we just take the 3rd page and show some of the design, you will be able to see how these relate. So here we have a blue, which has an X symbol in the middle, in the centre of it. And this is DMC 517 called Wedgwood Dark, and we need 2 meters in length of thread. So if we take our blue, you will see that this colour relates to the symbol. So where we can see this blue with an X, we need to stitch with this colour. Then if we take the 3607 colour, which is this plum light with a tick, we need 3 meters of this length of thread, and you can see where we need to stitch this in this colour because there is this symbol that we're looking for on the pattern. Then if we take our final colour, which is this burnt orange dark, which has a code 900, this is the symbol for this colour, and we need 3 meters in length for this, and you can see here where that symbol relates. So where you see this symbol, you need to stitch in that colour. Now you might be wondering, well, what does this code actually mean? So these threads will come from what we call a skein. So this is a DMC skein, and each colour has its own unique number. So as you can see here, this is a 321, which is the specific unique number for this colour. So these threads will have come from a skein just like this, and this number here, this code here, relates to the unique number for that colour. So let's have a look at the design and the pattern that we're going to be stitching from. On the top here you can see that we have a coloured pattern which has the colour and the symbol which is the same and matches the DMC colour key here. We also have a black and white version which just has the symbols, as some stitchers do prefer to stitch from just the symbol instead of having the colour as well within each of the squares. Now, as you can see, it's really a grid, and it's made up of 10 by 10 grids. So each square here is represented on our fabric. So each square that you can see on this fabric is the same as the square here in our pattern. So if we were to start at the top here of our band, and we said that this was where we were starting on our fabric, you would see that in this section here we're going to have some of these stitches placed here on our band, and we'll go into a lot more detail on this in the next part of our series. Other things to notice is that there are 2 red lines, and there's these pointers pointing in these directions. This line is the halfway point vertically, and this line is the halfway point horizontally. Where they meet means that this is the central point of the design. So in the next part, we will be focusing on our pattern as we are going to be starting our pattern. And so we will go into even more detail on that and really take you through the design step by step, and I will be stitching it with you as well. So I'm really looking forward to the next part and putting that first stitch into our piece. So the next thing that I want to look at is the needle minder, which I briefly mentioned earlier in the video. These are a great tool to have for your needles. They are 2 magnets, one with the design on the front with a magnet at the back, and then there is also a little magnet to go on the back of your fabric. So if we take our bookmark band, and I'll just move that to the side, I'm going to take the first part of our needle minder, so the design at the front, and then I'm going to place the magnet on the back. And as you can see, that's now secure and in place. And because they are made up of magnets, we can then put our needle on top of our needle minder, and it keeps our needle safe and secure in place. Now, the Caterpillar cross stitch needle minders are super strong, so you don't have to worry about your needle ever being lost, and it just really saves you having to put unnecessary holes into your fabric, and also just keeps it secure and in place. Now, there is actually going to be a bug themed needle minder being released later on in the year, so keep an eye out for that. So the last thing that I want to share with you is a pencil. I would recommend having something on hand to cross out where you have stitched. So if you have, say for instance, stitched this section here, it's always really helpful to mark off where you have stitched so that you can keep track when you come back to it where you have left off and where you need to pick back up. I always find a pencil is a really great tool, especially these type of pencils, as if you drop it on your fabric, it's not going to mark it like a highlighter would, but some stitchers do like to use a highlighter, so it is really down to personal preference, but I personally like to use a pencil, so I'd recommend having something to have on hand to rub out or mark off where you have stitched. So that concludes part 1 of the Caterpillar Cross Stitch School series. Super excited for the next part, as we are going to be putting that first stitch into our bookmark. If you have enjoyed this video, then make sure to give it a like. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.